welcome to the ball for the gay, lesbian, and homo-friendly. That was where I learned very early that the Hasidic Jew community is very horny and kinky. So we had a mistress called the Baroness do a bull whipping out front with a slave.
Hey there, it's me, Roxy Cottontail. You might know me as a DJ, artist, designer, and New York City party promoter, or from my bunny logo. I'm putting all that on the table and writing about the years that transformed music and the New York City scene. I've interviewed 250 friends and colleagues I admire. I ask all and reveal all. Please join me and the Tales to rediscover the 90s and the Y2K magical landscape of music, art, technology, and streetwear. This is Roxy's Tales. Let's introduce yourself for the record.
Okay. Well, I am Michael Formika Jones, also known as the Misstress Formika. I was a New York City drag performer for 10 years and then a New York City promoter for 15 years.
My guest this week on Roxy's Tales is the one and only Misstress Formika. Formika and I met back in the early days of Motherfcker, but prior to that, this queen was ruling the Squeezebox stage at Don Hills, only one of, if not the only iconic rock and roll drag queen parties in history. Among many other legendary places in the 90s and 2000s, Formika and I go down a debaucherous time in New York City nightlife history, so get ready for some laugh out louds. This is Roxy's Tales.
And when did you come to New York?
I got to New York when I was 19. It was in 1989. I turned 20 years old here. And I discovered nightlife immediately because, you know, being like a gay kid from a small town coming to New York, that's, you know, that's what you come here for, to find your community or your people. So I remember getting here at 19 and finding like nightlife and seeing such crazy things like drag queens and performance artists, people blowing fucking fire from their pussies, to drag queens like, you know, screaming rock and roll. And it was just like so diverse and crazy that I just got so enthralled and so enamored by the nightlife that it was just, I had to do it.
And what did you do when you came to New York?
Well, when I first came to New York, I got a job waiting tables at the Royalton Hotel, which is the Stephen Rebell and Ian Traeger hotel that they opened up. Mm-hmm. They were the people that ran Studio 54. Ian Traeger was running it at this point because Steve Rebell had died of AIDS. And Philippe Stark designed the whole entire hotel. And I had a friend, Leslie, that was working there, and she got me in. So I came from like Santa Fe straight into the Royalton, where I was waiting on like Tim Curry, Sandra Bernhardt, Anna Wintour, like all these people every day. I was waiting on them for lunch. And it was like a dream job. Like even Pat Fields, like I worked at Pat Fields. That was one of my first jobs here. Really? I worked on A Street at Pat Fields with all the girls. And I worked in the makeup department. And that's where I met like Connie Girl. I met Cody Ravioli. I met Pat Field. I met Rebecca Field, who's Rebecca Weinberg now. And all the whole crew that worked back then. Perfidia, who now does hair on Wicked. And all those people I met at Pat Fields. And that was like, after I left the Royalton, that was my job after that, was working there. Then I went into nightlife.
Amazing.
When you got into nightlife, you had to find those nightlife jobs that could let you be a weirdo during the day, you know? Because when you're doing drag, especially, you have like no brows, long nails, weird hair during the day, you know, so you had to find those jobs where they knew, you know, that's just like your day look. But I remember one night I was working at Florent, which was that restaurant. Do you know Florent?
It's been mentioned a lot. It was an after hours.
Yeah, spot. It was a 24-hour French restaurant on like 13th Street. And everybody used to go there late night. And I remember in the morning, they're like, oh, every morning at 6 o'clock, you have to walk over to the bagel place, which was on 14th Street. So you went all the way around the block to 14th Street. And I remember on my way there to go get the bagels for morning breakfast, I'm walking down and I look and there's this little buzzer that says, like right next to the bagel place, there's a door and the buzzer says, Lee's Mardi Gras. And I was like, I wonder what that Lee's Mardi Gras is. So I leave there. I walk all the way back to Florent, but then I asked one of the people, I said, oh yeah, I went and got bagels. What is that Lee's Mardi Gras? And they're like, oh, it's the only store in town that sells pumps over size 10. So I went there a couple weeks later, and sure enough, you buzz the buzzer, you go up to the 4th floor, this big warehouse opens up and it's filled with all these like glitter dresses and high heel shoes.
And is that where you got your first pumps for a drag
No,
show?
my first pumps were bought on the street on St. Mark's, coming out of the boy bar one night at 4 a.m. St. Mark's Street from 2nd to 3rd Avenue. Every Friday and Saturday, no, I think almost every night of the week, we're turning to a mall. So all the broke ass crackheads or junkies or people that needed money would throw a blanket down and sell their goods. So you would leave Boy Bar at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. There'd be 100, 200 people out there just selling shit. And you'd walk by, look down on their blankets. And I walked by this one bitch's blanket and she had these pointy black 6-inch pumps in my size. And I bought them for $10. Those were my first drag pumps. Okay. And I think I wore those till they fell apart. But while I was doing that, I discovered Love Machine, the Pyramid Club, and all these like parties that were going on. And I just got so...
Love Machine, what was that?
Love Machine was Larry T's party.
Oh.
And that's where I first saw RuPaul and Lady Bunny.
What was your first drag performance? Would you say it was Hippie Chicks or?
No, well, Hippie Chicks was like my first party, but my first drag performance was at the Pyramid with Linda Simpson at Channel 69. And I remember doing Nina Cherry, I've Got You Under My Skin as a lip sync. And that became my whole shtick. My whole shtick for my character was Misstress Formika, dominating my life, teaching others to dominate theirs. And all of my shows are very political about, you know, AIDS and equal rights and, you know, bringing people together. And I remember when I hosted a party, I used to say, welcome to the ball for, what did I say? Welcome to the ball for the gay, lesbian, and homo friendly.
Love it.
Then, of course, you know, because I was doing drag at the Pyramid Club in the early 90s, I started my own party right around that, I guess, 92, 91, 92, called Hippie Chicks. And it was like a total retro 60s, all psychedelic music with like pop brownies. We sold joints in the Incense Peppermint Lounge, stuff like that. And that sort of like started my nightlife evolution. Is that party started, then the word got out that I was like,
where was that?
That was at a place called Crowbar, which was little tiny bar on 10th Street.
Oh, that different.
Not the big Crowbar. This was the same people that own Barracuda and Elmo and Industry. This was their first bar. Wow. It was Bob and Steve. They ran this bar called Crowbar, and it was a tiny little hole in the wall, but everybody went there. And I started my party there on a Wednesday night called Hippie Chicks, and it became this really weird phenomenon, but I couldn't afford to stay there because all the money I was making at the door was going to pay the performers, the DJs, all the stuff we were doing there. And the bar wasn't making enough money to give me any money. So I had to leave and look for a bigger venue. And around that time is when I got a phone call to do Squeezebox with Miss Guy and Michael Schmidt and Pat Briggs. Because he called me up and he goes, hi, my name is Michael Schmidt. And I heard you're the queen of the East Village.
Oh, nice.
And I said, oh, I am? I said, I didn't know that. And he goes, well, I'm starting a rock party with Miss Guy and Patrick Briggs, and we're looking for this and that and this, that. And that's how I got involved in that party, because Miss Guy and Michael Schmidt and Pat Briggs were already friends. And I was the kind of the outsider coming in. And it just kind of meshed so well. And we all became friends and stayed friends all those years. I definitely was a business person before I was like, give me attention, I'm in drag.
Squeezebox was at Don Hills?
Yeah, at Don Hills. Poor Don. He was a great guy. I love Don. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was at Don Hills. And then at the same time, they were filming Wigstock, the documentary in 93, 94. And I had just started doing drag really 6 months before that. Wow. And established such a strong name for myself. And then I was doing Squeezebox that I was asked to do Wigstock. So I did Wigstock for 2 years. And the producers of the movie really loved me. And I had a big part in Wigstock, which was really great. And that sort of catapulted me to superstardom.
Was Squeezebox weekly?
Squeezebox was every Friday night. Yeah, we had opening bands, anywhere from like punk bands to like rock bands to grunge bands to acoustic bands. And then we would have a late night performance by Queen doing covers with our house band.
Oh, cool.
So I would run rehearsals all day with like, say, I would ask like Candace Kane or, you know, a Queen who'd never sung before. And yeah, it was kind of like a full band karaoke with a drag queen. And we had a great sound guy named Night Bob. He made everybody sound so fucking great. So it was a huge hit.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you for funny stories and ridiculous ones as well.
Oh God, so many stories there. I mean, I remember being on stage with Courtney Love, Billy from Green Day, Evan Dando, Miss Guy. I think Theo Kogan from the Lunatics was on there. And Courtney was like, sing one of my songs. And so the band had already, knew one of her songs. And I didn't know the words because her album just came out. And I was like, I don't know the word. She goes, I'll tell you. So she got the guitar. She started playing the guitar. They started playing the song. And then she would sing the words into my ear before they came out. And then I would sing the song.
My God, that's
And
great.
then
Yeah,
that night we all.
I saw a photo. Someone is selling a photo of you on stage. Have you seen
Bob
that?
Gruen.
Oh, it's
Bob Gruen, who's a really famous, rock photographer, took a really great picture of that night. And I see it up for sale all the time. But that night we all went downstairs and we all got tattooed. Let's see if I can still find mine.
Oh my God.
We all got a little star tattoo on our wrists. Where's mine? It's been so long and I've had my tattoos all moved around, but where is that little star? I think it's on this side. But yeah, we all got stars on our wrists. I can't remember which one it was.
Who brought a tattoo gun to Don Hills?
We had a guest tattoo artist in the basement. Oh, cool. It was one of our things, we always had weird shit going on there, but one night we had a guest tattoo artist, 2 of them in the basement doing tattoos. So you could go down the basement and get a tattoo while you were at the party. But yeah, there, you can barely see it. It's all like, let's see, it's right there. Oh. It's kind of like faded in. Can you see that little star there? We all got stars on our wrists there, like 15 of us. So Billy from Green Day has one. I have one. All the Squeezebox queens have one. Courtney didn't want to get a tattoo. I remember.
Theo, I'm sure Theo has one. No?
Theo got one. But and I remember that night I traded earrings for a bracelet with Courtney.
Amazing.
Whatever. It was we're just idiots.
Any iconic interactions?
Well, meeting Tora Satana was great. You know who she is?
Mm-mm.
She was in a lot of Russ Meyer's movies. She was in a movie called Faster Pussycat Kill Kill.
Oh yeah.
And she was a star of that movie. And she came to Squeezebox one night and we hung out together and that was pretty iconic. Also meeting the model Verushka. She's like one of the first ever supermodels ever to grace the pages of Vogue and so on and so forth. And meeting her there was great. Meeting Debbie, becoming friends with Debbie, performing with Mark Almond was amazing. I sang Sexdorf with Mark Almond, and that was like a song I listened to in high school. So being on stage singing with him was very cool. Yeah, totally. It was so surreal. He's a total sweetheart. And then, just meeting everybody that, Michael brought in all the talent. I brought in all the queens. He brought in all the celebrities that we either host or sing with the band. That's how I sang with Courtney and Billy from Green Day. Is they got, we were on stage at Madison Square Garden. If you look up Green Day 1990 something at Madison Square Garden, if you look at the intro of that, it's me, Pat Briggs, Miss Guy, and I think Theo, and I'm not sure who else, all in drag on stage at Madison Square Garden with the opening song with Green Day.
Amazing.
And that was really fun because, they loved us and they loved Squeezebox, so they invited us to come on stage. And then afterwards, they all came down to Squeezebox, and that's where I sang on stage with Courtney.
Very cool.
That night. That was a fun night. Yeah. But we also met a lot of John Waters, superstars from his movies came. John Waters used to come all the time. I used to make out with one of the Strokes all the time when I was in drag. Yeah, I was a pretty girl. I was a very pretty girl back then.
Yeah, they mentioned like how they like to like push buttons of like people. And like, even though they're not gay, I mean, I think they just had a kick out of it.
In the 90s, nobody was really gay or straight. It was just so much fun there. And then after that, we were ending Squeezebox because the city was cracking down. The fire department was in there all the time, busting us for overcapacity, for every little thing they could find. They would show up at they knew prime time at a New York nightlife party, New York night party, any night of the week. It always started at midnight. So your main crowd got there at 12 and then it went to 3. That was your bulk time. So they would always show up at 12:30, 1 o'clock, fuck you till 2:30. Then you were dead and empty and you lost all your money that night because that's when you made your money, was starting at midnight. People in New York always went out at midnight.
And then where were you working at that, around?
At that time I left, and that's when I started La Nouvelle Justine's. The owner of Lucky Chang's called me up and said, listen, I'm opening up an S&M themed restaurant. Do you want to help me with it? I said, okay. So I went with her and I helped her conceive, put together, renovate, book, hire, and then run the La Nouvelle Justine's, which was the first ever S&M themed restaurant on 23rd Street. The first year we were there, we had like Marilyn Manson there, Nina Hagen, Joan Rivers, every porn star you could think of went there. Billy Zane went there. Everybody went to that restaurant. It made like $1.5 million the first year. And at our opening party, we had a mistress called the Baroness do a bull whipping out front with a slave. It was like the coming of Christ. It was like she was beating him, whipping him with this thing, and he was getting, you know, lash marks on his back. And I remember Hayne, the owner of the restaurant who I was working with, coming out and being like, it's a little bit freaking people out. And I said, I know, but just give it one more minute because we're going to get worldwide press on this. And she goes, okay, but stop her in a minute. I said, I will. And then I went to the Baroness, you know, very politely. And I said, Baroness, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. She stopped her show. Sure enough, we got worldwide press in every fetish magazine in the world, because that was something they had never seen before. It was like a slave being whipped on the street. Huh?
What year was that?
That was around 98, 99.
I wish
and then I worked there for 2 years. That was, it was 98, I believe. It might have even been 97, but I think 98. I worked there for 2 years, and then I had to leave because Hayne came up to me and she said, oh, I got another call from the city. We got another letter from the city. They have said that they're going to take my liquor license away unless we don't allow pasties, don't have buttless chaps. We can't have bareback spankings anymore. And we can't do this whole list of stuff. And I was like, well, I wish you would fight it and make this an adult themed restaurant and keep it, because if you're going to go down that road, I said, I'm not going to work at the Bachelorette Central S&M joke place. I said, I made it authentic. I had real mistresses doing shows there for dinner. I made it beautiful. And I said, I'm not going to throw that away to deal with a bunch of fucking white trash coming from Bridge and Tunnel thinking it's funny when this place is the coolest place I've ever worked. And she goes, I'm sorry, I just can't fight the law. I just don't want to go to court with them. I don't want to deal with it. And so I gave my notice, left there. And sure enough, it turned into that, like a clown place where it wasn't authentic. It
what
was
is
just,
it called?
La Nouvelle Justine's.
La Nouvelle Justine.
Yeah, La Nouvelle Justine is a character from the Marquis de Sade.
Oh.
Which is a very famous, scandalous writer of, you know, fetish and, you know, pain and pleasure kind of.
Very cool.
Yes.
I wish I got to go there because I moved to New York in 97.
It might have been, I know it was like the end of the 90s, because by 99, they were shutting everything down, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, New York was just, I mean, it's a shadow of what it was. Because, you know, when Giuliani came in and so-called cleaned it up after it became the so-called hero after 9/11, you know, I still to this day have so much disdain towards that man, because he's just a fake, politically selfish, narcissistic piece of shit that really didn't care about New York at all. Yet after he boots out everybody in nightlife, gets rid of all the adult businesses, gets rid of the artists and the art, then he sells it as art and nightlife, never sleeps, and all this shit that he fucking shut down. He's such a goddamn hypocrite. So anyway, you know, once he started cracking down on everything is when everything started to change. New York used to be the kind of place where it's like, if you lived in these villages, the reason why it took an hour to go to lunch is because you knew everybody there. They lived in that neighborhood. Everybody stayed in the neighborhood. They could afford their apartments. They weren't getting booted out. Rents weren't going up. When Giuliani started his bullshit with nightlife, that was just the beginning. Then he started getting rid of rent control, rent stabilization, which meant when your lease was up, they could raise your rent to whatever you want. Then that meant neighborhoods were breaking up. That means no longer is this the gay neighborhood, or this the Polish neighborhood, or this the Latin neighborhood, the Cuban, the Dominican, the Puerto Rican. No, it's all mixed now because people are just fucking desperately running around like ants all over the city trying to find a place where they can live. And then they don't stay for more than 2 or 3 years because their rent goes up so high because there's no cap on what they can raise your rent. So people are constantly moving. So there goes community. There goes safety, which he says it's safer. No, safety's gone when you don't know the people you live around. Safety doesn't exist when you take a mom and pop place out and you put in a Target. The mom and pop place would be like, oh my God, there's our best customer, Michael, getting beat up. Let's go out there and help him. Target, the girl's going to take out her iPhone and put you on YouTube getting beat up. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't give a shit about you. So it's like what Giuliani did to this city wasn't clean it up and make it nicer. Giuliani sold out everything that all the people who desperately wanted to live here came here and survived here and made something out of nothing here. And then he came and wiped those people away, used everything that the people that were here before him made this city to be, to promote it, to fucking tourists. It was no longer New Yorkers. It was no longer about New Yorkers. It was about, let's get that tour dollar in and get rid of these freaks. And that's basically what Giuliani did to the city. Michael T. and his crew started Motherfcker.
Yeah. So how did you meet Michael?
Michael T. and I met, I believe, at Boy Bar. Okay. Michael used to perform at Boy Bar, and I would perform at Boy Bar. I met Guy, Cody, you know, a lot of the queens at Boy Bar, because that was like the place to go on Thursday nights. And that's where I met Michael T. So when they started Motherfcker, which I have mother on this arm and fucker on this arm, I have Motherfcker on my arms, which is why they think they called the party Motherfcker, because they had always intended for me to host it. I started emceeing at their parties once, and I think it was like 6 times a year on all the holiday Sundays.
Yeah.
And I did that with them for years and years and years.
Well, I was going to ask about how the years of Rated X, because you were the host of this.
Well, I was the promoter. Michael T. and Theo were the DJs. And then I think at the beginning we had Amanda Lepore. Oh God.
Yeah.
What? Sophia Lamar.
Yeah.
We had Sophia Lamar as the host. So it was like, it was, you know, she's always the bad girl, mean rocker chick. So we always had her at the rocker party, and I love her to death. She's amazing. So, you know, I promoted that. I ran the space. I booked it. I did all the flyers, all the promotions, all the bookings. Michael T. and Theo were DJs. And like I said, when we closed Opaline down, Area went with me, which was the Saturday party or the Friday party. And then the Saturday party, Rated X, went with Michael and Theo because they want to continue. And I didn't want to continue that.
Could you also tell me the years of Rated X that you were involved?
Yes, Rated X. Let's see. We started, Rated X was the early 2000s. So we started right after 9/11. We were doing a party downtown called John Street. That's where the Sister Sisters first performed.
What years was that, John Street?
That was 2000 to 2001, because 9/11 happened, and then they shut all of downtown down. Yeah. That sounds down. So we closed up, and I remember telling the manager there, if you know anybody who has a bar or club, a venue that's empty, or they want to, like, you know, bring some life to, let me know. And that's when the guy named, who was the manager there, his name was Tao, T-A-O, I believe, Tao. He was so cute. He told me, oh yeah, I know this guy named Ricky who owns a place, who's running a place called Opaline down in the East Village. I was like, oh my God, that's my neighborhood. And so that's when I met with him. And like a month later, I opened up Area 10009, which was a Friday party. And then a month or two after that, I opened up Rated X. So it was like 2002, I think, that we opened that stuff up.
How was like nightlife for you post 9/11?
It was tough because nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody was coming out. People were terrified to leave their houses. And we had like maybe 30 people in the club. And I was like, I'm done. I said, I'm not going to sit here week after week hoping people come back. I just have to wait. And then that's when I went back to Chang's. And then I opened Opaline in end of 2001. It took almost a year before. And when we first opened Opaline, we had opening night, I think 300 or 400 people. And then within 3 months, we were up to 1,000 people. So that party grew steadily every single week. The word got out and people really loved it. Then after it got busy, then we opened Rated X. And that party was always good, but it was never as good as the Friday party. The gay party was always packed. The Saturday party was always busy, but it was never like line around the corner to get in, unless it was like a holiday weekend, you know? Yeah. And that's why when Theo and Michael said they wanted to take it, I said yes.
Was Opaline 2 floors?
It was 1 floor,
but
it had a little front room that we had another DJ in, and we always called that on Saturday the panty party room. Like they had ropes up, and if you wanted to get in there, you had to strip down to your underwear. Yeah.
So cool.
And that's where Avenue D used to hang out and host. I think Debbie, it was Debbie from Avenue D, the band Avenue D.
Yeah.
It was Debbie, Theo, and Michael who started that party.
Do I look like a slut?
Yeah. Debbie D was one of the hosts. Theo was a host, and Michael T and Theo were the DJs, and Debbie D was the host. So going into nightlife was just an open, it was like a doorway to the real world. You know, not the homogenized world they show on TV, or the homogenized world they show in the news, or the homogenized world that religion teaches you. It was like, shh, welcome to the real world. You know, it's like, this is the real world. gay, straight, trans, black, white, yellow, green, up, down, asexual, transsexual, you know, like bisexual, you know, it was everywhere, all over the board, you know, and it was just, I think it's better than college.
It is a whole nother education for sure. You know,
it really was.
Who was I just talking about this? I was like saying how I like feel because of my experience in nightlife, I just am able to like spot a cornball in 2 seconds. So I like,
yeah,
know if the vibe is great or not. Like I have a much better like trust in myself, I guess.
Something about like, well, the reason why I'm moving home now is like, I want to go home now and, you know, I want to reinvent myself because I feel like all that shit that we experienced and that energy and all that amazing times, like I want to go home and like learn how to like put that into TV shows, into books, into movies, and just show the world of like how all inclusive and how cool that world was and how the fucking demon Giuliani was for destroying something that was so beautiful. And I know, okay, Michael Alec did drugs and killed Angel. It was horrible. It was awful. But that doesn't mean every fucking nightclub person in every nightclub is filled with drugged out, you know, murderers. You know, they took that one thing and that was like the icing on the cake.
For sure.
Oh, they shut everything down after that. They went after purgation. All the clubs are closed. Tunnel, Palladium, you know, Limelight, all that shit were closed down. And
I remember
that was thousands of jobs.
Yeah, Stephen Lewis gave me like my first recommendation because one of his girlfriend's little brother at the time was coming to my parties and was like, oh no, she draws like 300 people. And they were like, who? And they were like, they're kids. And she's like, but from where? And it was just like, who cares?
But I do remember venues like the Vault, which was like a gay, straight, trans sex club, which was amazing. Stop it.
Where was that?
It was, you know where the Triangle building is?
Yes. Oh, yes. This has been mentioned a bunch.
Yeah, the Vault was really amazing. And then right around the corner from the Vault was a bar called Jay's Hangout, which was a late night after hours sex club for men. And that was 24 hours. And so was the Vault.
Oh
and the Vault was, I'll tell you a crazy story about the Vault. I went there when, you know, the head Hasidic Jew, whatever he's called, you know, the head priest, or I don't know what they call each other, rabbis. There you go. Sorry. I should know that by now. But the head rabbi was passing away. And this was like in the late 90s. And it was like a big deal. So Hasidic Jews from all over the world had come to New York for the passing of this rabbi to find out who was going to carry on his legacy or whatever. I show up at the Vault and Drag with Sherry Vine. And as we walk in, there is like 30 Hasidic Jews sitting in this corner booth right there in the open. And I was like, oh my God. And I looked over and I was like, oh my God. And it was just out in public. And then I asked somebody, what the fuck? Can they just do that? And somebody told me, I don't know if it's true because I didn't do my research back then. We didn't have Google back then. But somebody told me that I don't know if that's true. Do your research, check it out. Let me know. Oy vey, I don't know. So I don't know, but I was just kind of like, really? Because it was pretty blatant. And then when I worked at Lauderdale Justine's, we used to give spankings and stuff, you know, as part of the like service menu as a gimmick. And I just remember like there was this Hasidic Jew who was so cute. He was 22 years old. His name was and he would come in once a week for me to spank him. And it was literally like he would pay me, you know, $25 plus tip. You know, it was a service we offered. It wasn't a sex club. It was just for fun. You come and have a drink, you get a spanking. So we came in and I remember bending over and he'd be like, 1, 2, 3. Oh, and he'd come in his pants after 3 spankings and he would leave.
Oh my God.
So that was where I learned very early that the Hasidic Jew community is very horny and kinky. So yeah. I have so many crazy stories like that.
I would always try to get Justine to make out with me, but she was not good at opening up.
You and me both. I fucking was in love with Justine.
Lips. I know.
Justine and Theo Kogan were like my women idols. You know, I wanted to be those girls. They were so hot.
Yeah, I know.
I was so jealous of them.
I was a fan of the Luna Chicks before I even met Theo. And then
they just performed in Vegas.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, all my friend Greg, G-Spot and all them are out there right now. And I've been texting him on Instagram saying, "Oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I was there."
Yeah. I went to go see this band somewhere in Brooklyn. One of the guys from Turbo Negro started his own thing, and I went.
Oh, cool.
And she was there, and I was like, I'm gonna completely fan out, and like, can we get a picture together? He was like, yeah, aren't you like, I know you? And I was like, yeah, from Motherfcker. And she was like, yeah, hey, So.
I know Motherfcker was fun. The documentary, did it ever come out? I don't think the documentary ever came out, which is lame.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yes.
This was at
I know. I miss Georgie when Georgie died.
Yeah.
Georgie, that was sad because he was the best. Oh yeah. Michael T. Science fiction.
This is a later one.
Transvestite, Moby on there. Shit.
This was a later one because I am a host on here, and so is Lady Gaga.
Oh, love that. Yeah. Cramps. I remember that was a good one. That was a good one. I got to introduce the Cramps. Woo, I was so happy.
Limelight, which they called Avalon.
Yeah, that was one of the.
Yeah, I have lunch. You take the baby.
Yeah, I think he needs to go out or he's hungry.
Well, I appreciate this so much, Michael. Thank you.
And stay in touch with me.
I will. I definitely will.
Love ya.
I love you.
Thanks for hopping by. That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and stalk. Bounce, little kitty.